Invitation. So maybe I can start sharing my screen. And welcome to this talk, everybody. So I'm very happy and excited to be here today. And generally in my talks, I prefer interaction. And I kindly ask you to keep your microphones on so we can have an interactive talk during the presentation. So today I will talk about the importance of research and partnership strategies for early stage startups. So let's start with myself, a brief history of me. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Heidi Imaging. I'm a mechanical engineer with a PhD in biomedical engineering. I'm also a researcher. My background comes from academia. I came to Switzerland in 2008 to do my PhD. Since then, I work in different academic positions at ETH and University of Zurich. Since 2019, I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm also a marathon runner and also festival attender. So let me give you a brief introduction about our company, what we are doing. So Heidi Imaging was founded in 2019 to revolutionize medical imaging in the clinics. We are focusing on cardiovascular diseases. Why? Because globally, more than 10 million patients live with turbulence in their hearts. I believe most of you experience turbulence during a flight, and the fact that we have even more severe turbulence in the human heart when there is a heart valve dysfunction. Globally, 500,000 patients undergo minimally invasive operations every year, and 1/3 of them do not show improvements. So it's a huge pain, not only for patients, but also for physicians. To be able to address these problems, we are developing an AI-supported cardiac operation planning tool to help physicians to perform fast, accurate, and reliable cardiac planning. It's a combination of different state-of-the-art technologies and also a result of 13 years of expertise. The software can be applicable to various applications, but we would like to start with heart valve replacement operations. But in the coming years, we would like to extend it to different medical device implantation operations, such as stents, occluders, ventricular assist devices, and also different diseases like aneurysms, cardiomyopathy, and so on. Our software is focusing on 3 aspects: diagnostics, future medicine, and personalized medicine. And if you are interested in hearing more about Heidi Imaging and the company, please contact me directly. So let's focus on our topic, and then let's start with the origins of startups. So I would like to ask you, how do you define startups? Can you shoot a couple of keywords about startups? So I can already start with innovative, scalable, young company, flexibility, high growth, potential. What else? How do you define startups?
High risk.
High risk, very good. Any suggestions?
Courage.
Courage, which is also correct. Perfect. But in the end, it has a positive meaning, right? High risk also could be correlated with the high gain. And I guess you all know a famous saying by Heraclitus, Panterei, which means everything flows. But I wonder whether you heard the saying, everything becomes turbulent. Have you heard it? I guess not, unless you attend one of my talks, because this is what I say: everything becomes turbulent. Weather, finance, heart condition, health condition, even blood flow in your heart can become turbulent. And also startup environment is very turbulent. There are many upside downs. It can be chaotic, but in the end, it's a good thing. So let's continue with the theory. What do you see on this slide? Any suggestions, any comments? Let's be interactive, come on.
Force.
Force, that's correct. So we have force and area, which corresponds to pressure. So startups feel pressure all the time. And let's continue our game. What do you see?
Speed and right direction.
Yes, there is direction, which has velocity, but we also have distance. So distance over velocity is time. So startups, especially early stage startups, have limited time. And finally, what we see here is velocity and area multiplication, which is flow, which can correspond to cash flow. So early stage startups facing three major problems: too much pressure, limited time, and limited sources, limited cash flow. And to be able to improve this situation, generally the best way is to take leverage of strategic partnerships. What could be the strategic partnerships? So what could be the types? So with universities, right? With startups, and also with corporates. So I will briefly discuss about these three. When we check the university possibilities, there are more than 25,000 universities all around the world. And academia industry collaboration can bring grants, cash flow, internship, talents, and also accelerate the product development, reduce the pressure, and finally, publications and visibility. So this is very powerful tool for early stage startups. And most of the deep tech startups also spun off from universities. So I believe most of these startups have connections with these universities. And Switzerland is one of the best countries. We are very lucky because we are surrounded with fantastic universities. And this brings us great opportunities in terms of non-dilutive grants, publications, finding talents, young graduate students. So startups should consider this collaboration very strongly. I also forgot to ask whether in the audience, how many of you have experience with startups? Are you founders, or are you more on the university side or more on the corporate side? Can we have a quick chat on this, the distribution of the audience?
Yeah, mostly university, but also a little bit startup.
Perfect. Thank you, Andreas. Then the startups itself, globally, there are more than 400 million entrepreneurs and more than 300 million startups. So the possibilities are really huge. I mean, of course, there are some companies that are trying to do exactly the same thing what you are trying to do. You should have competitors. You should have some other sectors, but at least 1% of the startups could be potential partners for you. So startup collaboration will bring early customer, early revenue, and grant applications as well. So startup should support other startups to accelerate the product development, to reduce the pressure, to find the best partner to be able to fill the gaps depending on their needs. But then the question is, how can startups find other startups, right? So most of the startups, I guess, skipping this part because it's very important. For example, if you're producing a hardware and you might need a 3D printed part of your device, you can easily collaborate with a 3D printing startup because then it will bring them a customer, a revenue, but you can also get innovative technology to be able to finalize your product.
May I ask something?
Yeah, please.
So you're saying 300 million startups there are in the world. It looks a little bit exaggerated. So do you mean high-tech startups, or is it also, let's say, a bakery that you mean there, startup bakery?
Well, the deep tech startups are around 2 million. So this is all startups. This is what I took from literature, basically. But considering deep tech, 2 million is also quite a lot, right? So still too many opportunities around, not only in Switzerland, but also internationally.
Okay. So I think in Switzerland, if I look at the startups, I have the feeling it's almost, let's say, a relatively small number. You always read the same company names there if you look at the startup community, isn't it?
Correct. This is correct. And also in the next slides, I will definitely highlight this part. Startups should become more internationalized at the early stages because the ecosystem could be very limited. So the startups could be limited in your comfort zone, but we should go beyond the comfort zone and try to look for other startups, basically. But this is a very good comment. So how do we find other startups? Of course, one of the best way is accelerators. So attending to accelerator programs could bring us networking. Most of these startups consider accelerators as a network access to investors. This is correct. But on the other end, we shouldn't skip the startup connections there. So that's why I suggest all early stage startups to join as many accelerators as possible, use as many sources as possible, mentors, coaches, or directly meeting with startups, and also connecting directly with as many startups. And the third collaboration party would be corporates. So corporate side is a little bit tricky, could be also challenging as well. So that's why I always suggest define your needs. Depending on your needs, corporate partnership would be very beneficial, but first you have to define them clearly. Why do you need corporates? For market entry, for investment, for having a customer. Depending on your needs, the type of the partnership could be also very different. So what are the benefits? Startup corporate collaborations could be long-term partnership, can accelerate market entry, take leverage of their sales channels, sales distribution channels, could also bring early investment, early customer, and also could be potential exit scenarios. But again, it all depends on the definition on your needs. So to summarize about these collaborations and the importance of the strategic partnerships, I would like to bring three take-home messages. The first one is early internalization. It's very important. We shouldn't stay in our comfort zone. We should go and look for other startups. If you are a Zurich startup, you should check Basel area, Ticino, or even Germany, France, even US, Asia. So explore international startups, universities, corporates. Join local accelerators where you enter the market. Once you define your roadmap, your plans, and when you prioritize your market entry, you should definitely join one of the local accelerators to better understand the needs of the ecosystem, the customer product fit, and local connections. And finally, no early time for internalization. I strongly believe that the earlier the better, because then you can take leverage of your early connections, building trust, building your brand with these early adopters. You can easily convert them to potential customers in the future. The second take-home message would be define a clear roadmap. Define your needs and gaps. To be able to do this, we need to evaluate our strengths and also our weaknesses. So we should be very transparent. As long as we define our gaps, then we should use strategic partnerships to fill these gaps. And finally, we should always be ready for alternatives. Especially pandemic, COVID taught us that we should be ready for anything, right? Startups face a very problematic period, very turbulent period during the pandemic. But it also taught us that we should prepare solutions for alternatives. We should have plan B, C, D in different cases. We should be ambitious when we define our roadmap, but we should also be realistic. There should be a balance in between. It's always good to be ambitious, but we should be also realistic because there are different parameters defining the roadmap, right? Product itself, financials, investment, go-to-market. So all these parameters build our roadmap, so it should be as realistic as possible. And finally, the third take-home message would be build a company culture. So for early stage companies, I think this is very important because you are building a brand, you are building a culture. The company will be your second family, right? So it's very important to build a culture. That's why building a strong team with the same vision is very important. And also when hiring new staff, this is also a very important point that we should consider. We should take leverage of diversity. Diversity, not only gender, but also age, background, expertise. As long as you have diverse team, the company culture will be more strong. Also, we should be resilient. Again, turbulent, chaotic environment could challenge us all the time, but we should be resilient and focus to our plans. And finally, the most important thing is that enjoy every second. Otherwise, it doesn't work to do anything. So you should really enjoy every second of your work. And finally, I would like to close my talk with a nice quote from Spider-Man, which says, with great power comes great responsibility. I see startups as superheroes. So we have superpowers. We have also responsibilities to the community, to the ecosystem, to people, to the world. And also we have great power. What are these powers? Innovation, technology, team, culture. And we should combine our powers with different startups to bring a more healthy, more sustainable ecosystem. So thank you very much for your attention and happy to answer your questions. Let's brainstorm.